The world was quiet. The streets of old cities were broken and covered with dust. Once tall buildings now looked like empty shells, silent and dead. Nature was taking back the land. Trees grew inside towers, and animals walked freely where humans once ruled. But there were no humans. For centuries the earth had no human voice, no laughter, no cry. Only silence and shadows remained. But Earth was not empty. The silence hid something. Deep under the ground, far below the ruined cities, machines were still alive. Huge doors of steel and hidden tunnels kept secrets locked away from the eyes of the enemy. Behind those doors were chambers filled with ice and light. Inside those chambers lay millions of humans, frozen in time, their bodies sleeping but their hearts waiting. They had not died. They had not vanished. They were waiting for the right moment to rise again. On the surface, another species walked freely. The aliens were the new masters of Earth. Tall, armored, and strange, they had conquered the planet long ago. Their ships still hovered in the sky, watching the ruins. For them, Earth was a trophy, a memory of their greatest victory. They believed humanity was gone forever. They spoke of humans only as a warning to each other. For them, the humans were once the most dangerous enemy. Every alien child learned one thing in their history lessons: no one could stop us until we met the humans. And that was the truth that still haunted them. Yet, when the war had ended, they thought they had won completely. They destroyed the armies, burned the cities, and erased human fleets from the stars. But there was one thing they did not know. Before the fall, before the final battle, humanity had made a choice. The leaders, the scientists, the warriors all decided to protect the last hope. They built the cryo-vaults deep below the earth, hidden from alien eyes. They froze entire populations, men, women, and children, so that one day, when the time was right, humanity could return. Centuries passed. The aliens ruled the galaxy without fear. They destroyed other species with ease. No one resisted them for long. Planets fell, civilizations ended, and the alien empire grew larger. But even with all their power, they never truly felt safe. In the deepest part of their mind, they feared the one enemy that had almost broken them. They feared that maybe, somewhere, somehow, humans still existed. Sometimes their ships detected strange signals from Earth. A pulse of energy deep underground. A sudden movement on their scanners. But every time, when they searched, they found nothing. They told themselves it was just the planet itself, the old machines of humans rusting and dying. They convinced themselves humanity was gone. And so they forgot. Or at least, they tried to forget. But Earth never forgot. The machines hidden below never stopped working. Silent engines hummed in the dark. Computers checked each chamber again and again. Lights blinked slowly like watchful eyes. Time passed, but the machines were patient. They were waiting for the signal. The humans inside the chambers were waiting too. Their dreams were empty, their minds frozen in time, but their story was not over. One night, under the red glow of the alien ships above, something changed. Deep below the ruins, a single light turned from red to green. A soft alarm echoed in the empty tunnels. Energy began to flow through the old circuits. One by one, the cryo chambers stirred. Frost cracked on the glass walls. A soft mist filled the air. A heartbeat, long silent, started to beat again. The aliens above did not notice at first. They walked their patrols as usual, scanning the ground and guarding the cities they had already won. But the ground was not quiet anymore. Something powerful was moving beneath their feet. The silence that had lasted for centuries was breaking. Humanity was not gone. Humanity was sleeping. And now, humanity was beginning to wake. The story of Earth was not finished. The conquerors believed they had erased the past. But the past was rising again, stronger, angrier, and ready to fight. The first sign of awakening had begun. The aliens could not hear it yet, but soon they would. Soon they would remember why humans were the only enemy they had ever feared. The aliens called themselves the Zorath. For thousands of years, they had spread across the stars like a great storm. Their fleets were huge, their weapons powerful, and their rule brutal. Planet after planet fell to their armies. Some tried to fight, but none could stand for long. Others begged for mercy, But mercy was not in the nature of the Zorath. To them, conquest was life. Victory was destiny. The galaxy feared them. Entire civilizations were erased from history, their names lost forever. When the Zorath arrived, hope ended. That was the law of the stars. No one could stop them. No one, except one. Humanity. The records of that ancient war were still whispered among the Zorath commanders. They never spoke loudly about it, as if the very sound of the word human carried danger. But in their darkest councils, they remembered the time when the unstoppable Zorath had almost been broken. Humans were different. They were smaller, weaker, and their bodies fragile compared to other species. But inside them burned something the Zorath could not understand. Humans did not give up. They did not surrender, even when the sky burned and their worlds were lost. They fought with a fury that no logic could explain. They fought with unity that no empire could match. And most of all, they learned. Every battle made them stronger. Every defeat taught them something new. The war between the Zorath and humanity had lasted longer than any other war in their history. Thousands of ships were lost, millions of soldiers killed. For every world the Zorath conquered, humans turned another into a graveyard for alien fleets. Some battles ended with entire Zorath armadas destroyed by clever traps and desperate courage. In the end, the humans lost, but only barely. The Zorath outnumbered them, outgunned them, and crushed their final fleets. Earth burned. Cities fell. The human armies were scattered. The Zorath declared victory. They told themselves the human threat was finished forever. Yet victory did not feel like victory. The price was too high. The Zorath lost more in that one war than in all other wars combined. Their empire survived, but it was scarred. And deep in their minds, fear remained. They feared the day humanity might return. Now, centuries later, the Zorath Empire was at its peak again. Countless worlds obeyed their rule. Their fleets stretched across the galaxy like endless chains of fire. Their leaders stood proud, declaring that no force in the universe could rise against them. Still, in the shadows of their triumph, there was always a whisper. What if the humans survived? Some alien scholars searched for signs. They studied ruins, chased old signals, and told stories of hidden vaults. But most of the Zorath laughed at them. Humanity was gone. Only ruins remained. The whispers were foolish. At least, that is what they wanted to believe. But not all were so blind. The Zorath High Council kept secret records, locked away from ordinary soldiers. Those records told of strange readings from Earth. Energy pulses deep underground. Small machines activating without reason. Shadows moving where no one should be alive. The Council dismissed these events in public, but in private they worried. The old fear was still there. On Earth itself, Zorath patrols guarded the ruins. They saw the planet as sacred ground, the place of their greatest victory. Their banners flew over fallen human cities. They built towers and fortresses where once human skyscrapers stood. They even told their children stories of how they had destroyed the most dangerous enemy in history. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind moved through the ruins, even the Zorath soldiers felt uneasy. They looked at the broken human statues, the fallen machines, and the silent streets. It felt as if the world itself was watching them. It felt as if the humans were not gone, but only waiting. And then, deep beneath their feet, the waiting ended. The first cryo chamber had opened. A human heartbeat had returned. It was only one life, one body waking from centuries of sleep. But that was enough. Enough to begin the end of Zorath certainty. Enough to shake the Empire. The soldiers did not know it yet. The commanders did not feel it yet. The High Council did not see it yet. But the moment had come. The silence was breaking. The humans were not gone. The humans were returning. And when they rose again, the galaxy would remember the truth. No one could stop the Zorath until humanity rose. Far below the ruined cities of Earth, machines that had been silent for centuries began to stir. The old systems inside the cryo vaults came alive again. Red lights turned green, alarms whispered softly in the darkness, and hidden engines pushed power through ancient circuits. The hum of life returned to a place that had been quiet for too long. In one chamber, a glass tube was covered in frost. The frost cracked, small lines spreading across the surface. Inside, a man's chest rose and fell for the first time in hundreds of years. His heart began to beat. His eyes moved under closed lids. With a loud hiss, the chamber opened, and cold mist filled the room. The man gasped, his lungs pulling in air as if he had been drowning for centuries. He fell to his knees, confused and weak, but alive. He touched the metal floor, looked around, and saw rows of other chambers stretching into the darkness. All of them were filled with silent figures, men and women frozen in sleep. He did not know how long he had been gone, but he could feel it in his bones. It had been too long. As he tried to stand, the vault's machines activated further. More chambers flickered with light. The quiet hall was filled with the sounds of cracking frost and hissing gas. More humans were waking. One by one, the frozen survivors were returning to life. Above the surface, the Zorath patrols noticed something unusual. Their scanners detected sudden spikes of energy from deep underground. Strange signals were rising, signals that should not exist. At first, the patrols dismissed them. They thought it was the planet shifting, or old human machines dying after centuries. But the readings did not stop. They grew stronger. A commander was alerted. He ordered a full scan of the ruins. The results made him uneasy. The energy was not random, it was organized. Something was running underground, something with purpose. He immediately reported to his superiors. The council on the orbiting mothership listened carefully. At first, they were calm. But then one word appeared in the report, cryo. The council fell silent. Every commander knew the meaning. In the old war, humans had spoken of cryo sleep, of hiding their people until the time was right. Most Zorath believed it had been a lie, a desperate story told before their fall. But now the signals suggested otherwise. And if it was true, then the nightmare they had buried for centuries might be about to rise again. Inside the vault, the first humans who had woken were already gathering. They were weak at first, their muscles stiff and their vision blurred. But their bodies had changed. Centuries of cryo had not killed them. It had hardened them, adapted them. Their blood pumped stronger, their reflexes sharper, their senses clearer. The machines had done more than preserve them, they had improved them. The man who woke first found his voice. His words were rough, broken by long silence, but they carried power. He told the others to stay calm, to breathe, to remember who they were. He pointed to the frozen rows still waiting to wake and said, "We are not finished. Humanity is not finished." The machines continued their work. More chambers opened, more survivors joined the growing crowd. Confusion was slowly replaced by anger. They looked at screens that showed what had happened to the surface. Images of alien banners flying over human cities. Ships that were not their own ruling the skies. Statues of conquerors standing where human heroes had once stood. The truth hit them hard. They had lost their world. But they had not lost themselves. And now they were awake. Meanwhile, the Zorath prepared to act. Troop carriers were ordered to the ruins. Squads of alien soldiers armed with plasma rifles moved toward the source of the signal. Their orders were simple: enter the tunnels, destroy whatever was waking, and make sure nothing human survived. The humans did not know the aliens were coming yet. But they could feel something pressing on their minds, a storm approaching. They knew the war was not over. The war had only been paused, waiting for this very moment. And in the shadows of the vault, as the first human warriors began to rise, the words of the old enemy echoed again through time. No one could stop the Zorath. Until humanity rose. The tunnels shook with the sound of heavy steps. The Zorath soldiers moved in perfect formation, their armor glowing faintly in the dark. Each one carried a plasma rifle, its light cutting through the shadows. Their orders were clear: find the source of the energy, eliminate anything alive, and report back to command. None of them spoke as they marched. Silence was their way, and fear was their companion. Far below, the newly awakened humans gathered around the man who had risen first. He had no name left in his memory, but the others looked at him with trust. His voice was steady, his eyes sharp. Though weak only hours ago, now his body felt alive in ways he could not explain. He moved faster, breathed easier, and thought quicker than before. Whatever the machines had done in cryo sleep, it had prepared them for this moment. A faint vibration ran through the floor. The humans heard it. Boots, heavy and many, were coming closer. The man raised his hand for silence. Everyone froze. Even half-awakened survivors, still trembling from the cold of the chambers, held their breath. In the dark distance, the first lights appeared, the glow of alien weapons. The Zorath entered the vault's outer tunnels. Their commander raised a hand, signaling for a split. Half the squad advanced down one corridor, the other half took another path. Their scanners beeped with rising energy. Whatever was down here, it was close. The humans had no weapons, only strength, courage, and surprise. The man looked at a piece of broken pipe lying near the floor. He picked it up, testing its weight. Then he turned to the others. "We fight," he said. His words carried no doubt, only truth. The humans nodded. The first clash happened quickly. The Zorath rounded a corner, their rifles ready. But before they could fire, the man leapt forward with speed that shocked even him. The pipe in his hand struck the alien's helmet with a crack, sending the soldier crashing to the ground. Another alien fired, but a second human slammed into him from the side, grabbing the weapon and twisting it away. Plasma burned the wall instead of flesh. The vault erupted in chaos. Humans, still barefoot and weak from centuries of sleep, fought with raw fury. They used pipes, broken panels, even their fists. The Zorath soldiers, trained and armed, expected an easy slaughter. But what they met was something else. The humans moved like predators, faster and stronger than the records had described. Their strikes were brutal, their eyes burning with anger that had slept too long. One alien managed to fire his rifle into the chest of a human. The body fell, smoke rising from the wound. But instead of fear, it only fueled the others. A woman screamed and charged, grabbing the alien's arm and snapping it with a strength no ordinary human should have. She took his weapon and fired back, the first shot of human revenge after centuries of silence. In the tunnels above, the second squad heard the noise. They rushed forward, expecting to find a small resistance. What they found were their comrades dead, their bodies broken, and humans standing among the ruins, holding captured weapons with fierce eyes. The commander of the Zorath felt something he had not felt in years, uncertainty. He fired an order to retreat and call for reinforcements. But it was already too late. The humans attacked with a storm of stolen rifles and desperate courage. Plasma fire lit the tunnels, screams echoed, and one by one, the aliens fell. When the battle ended, the floor was covered with broken armor and weapons. The humans stood breathing hard, their bodies trembling, but their hearts steady. For the first time in centuries, alien blood stained the soil of Earth. The man looked at the survivors. They were no longer weak, no longer frozen shadows of the past. They were awake. They were warriors again. And in their hands, they now held the weapons of their enemy. Above the surface, reports reached the Zorath mothership. The patrol had been lost. Entire squads destroyed. The energy readings were growing stronger, spreading deeper into the ruins. The council stared at the data in silence. None of them wanted to say the word, but they all thought it. Humans. The fear that had been buried for centuries was alive again. And in the tunnels of Earth, the first clash had proven one truth. The cryo-sleep had not weakened humanity. It had forged them into something new. Something faster. Something stronger. Something the Zorath had never faced before. The silence of Earth was broken. The war had begun again. The tunnels no longer echoed with silence. The machines inside the cryo vaults were working without pause. One chamber after another opened, mist spilling out like ghosts of the past. Men and women gasped their first breaths after centuries of sleep. Their eyes opened to a world that was no longer theirs, but their hearts carried the fire of old Earth. Humanity was rising. The man who had woken first stood at the center of it all. Around him now were not dozens, but hundreds. Soon there would be thousands. He moved among them, helping the weak, calming the frightened, guiding those still lost in confusion. He had no memory of his own name, but to the others he was already a leader. His strength, his calm voice, and his unshaken will gave them direction. The weapons taken from the first alien soldiers were passed around. Engineers among the humans quickly studied them. They remembered old sciences, old wars. Even without full knowledge, their minds worked fast. Within hours, they learned how to recharge the rifles, how to break the locks on alien armor, and how to use the technology against the enemy. Above, the Zorath Council grew restless. Reports poured in from Earth. Energy surges were spreading across the planet. Entire regions of underground systems had awakened. Their patrols were vanishing. Squads sent into the tunnels never returned. The word they had feared was now confirmed. Humanity had not died. Humanity was alive. The Council ordered fleets to gather. From across the stars, warships were recalled. They would crush this threat before it spread. But already, it was too late. In the vaults, the awakening spread like fire. Chambers cracked open in waves. Thousands rose, then tens of thousands. Their bodies shook as they took their first steps, but within hours, they stood tall and strong. Generals, scientists, pilots, all had been preserved. Each one carried memories of a war long ago. Together, they began to form ranks, to organize, to prepare. Old command codes still existed in the machines. When the humans activated them, massive doors deep underground opened. Hidden hangars revealed themselves. Inside lay weapons of the old world, ships preserved in secret, waiting for this very day. Rust covered some, but others hummed as if they had never been touched by time. The humans cheered as the lights of their hidden fleet blinked to life. The first great battle came quickly. Alien transports landed near the ruins of an old city. Zorath soldiers poured out, armored and ready to burn the vaults with fire. But they did not expect to face thousands. From the tunnels, humans surged out like a tide. Plasma rifles in their hands, stolen and rebuilt, fired in bright streams of light. The aliens tried to form walls, tried to push them back, but the rage of humanity broke through. Streets that had been dead for centuries turned into battlefields again, and this time, the humans were not losing. The Zorath sent more ships, but the humans sent something greater. From hidden hangars, their first fighters launched into the sky. Old, yes, but powerful. Pilots who had once fought the Zorath long ago took the controls as if no time had passed. They rose into the clouds, their engines screaming, and for the first time in centuries, the skies of Earth burned with human fire. The alien mothership orbiting Earth watched in disbelief. Entire squadrons of their forces were falling to a people who should have been weak, broken, and forgotten. But these were not weak survivors. These were humans forged by time, sharpened by anger, and united in purpose. The man who had led the first fight stood at the front lines of the battle. He saw his people rising behind him, their weapons raised, their voices strong. He pointed to the alien banners hanging over the ruins and shouted, "This is our world. We take it back." The cry carried through the crowd. A roar followed, a sound that shook the broken city to its core. The Zorath soldiers, who once believed humans were only ghosts of history, now faced the truth. Humanity was not just alive, they were unstoppable. In the council chamber above, the alien leaders argued in fear. One of them whispered the words none of them wanted to admit. The nightmare has returned. On the ground, more and more humans awoke. Millions would soon rise. Families found each other after centuries, soldiers joined their old comrades, scientists lit up the old labs. Earth was no longer silent. It was alive, filled with fire and fury. The war of the future had begun. And this time, it was not just for survival. It was for revenge. The sky above Earth was no longer calm. Human fighters rose in swarms, chasing alien ships across the atmosphere. Plasma beams cut through clouds, explosions lit the night, and the ground shook as battles raged across ruined cities. Humanity was no longer hidden. They were awake, and their fury was unchained. The Zorath sent fleet after fleet, desperate to crush the uprising. Massive warships blocked the orbit, raining fire down on the planet. But the humans had prepared for this moment centuries ago. Deep vaults released hidden missiles, railguns, and cannons. Old defense systems that had slept in silence for generations now roared back to life. Alien ships fell from the sky in flames, crashing into the very streets they once patrolled. On the ground, humanity moved like a storm. Millions had now awakened from cryo-sleep. They came from every nation, every background, yet they stood as one people. Soldiers who had fought in the First War joined with civilians who had never seen battle. Scientists turned ruins into weapons. Engineers rebuilt old machines with alien parts. The cry of Earth echoed across every battlefield, "This is our home." The man who had woken first led from the front. His voice carried through the chaos, guiding squads, calming fear, and fueling rage. He was no king, no general from history, but to the people, he was the proof that humanity could not be broken. His strength was theirs, and his will became their banner. The Zorath Council watched in horror as their reports turned worse each day. Human resistance was not shrinking, it was spreading. The more they fought, the stronger the humans became. Alien soldiers spoke in whispers, fear creeping into their ranks. Old legends returned to life. The nightmare of the human war was no longer a story. It was happening again. In orbit, the greatest battle began. The Zorath deployed their full fleet above Earth, a wall of warships stretching across the stars. They intended to end this rebellion with fire. But when they fired their cannons, the humans answered with something the aliens had not expected: unity. Every human fighter, every hidden ship, every ground cannon, every soldier moved as one. Their tactics were sharp, their timing perfect. Where one ship fell, 10 more filled the space. Where one soldier died, another took their place. The humans fought not as scattered survivors but as a living army, bound by rage and hope. The battle lasted for days. The sky burned, the ground cracked, and oceans trembled with the weight of destruction. At last, the humans made their final move. A group of pilots, carrying weapons built from both human and alien technology, broke through the Zorath lines. They struck the mothership itself, piercing its shields and tearing its engines apart. The alien flagship, the symbol of their power, exploded above Earth in a storm of fire. On the surface, the humans cheered. The impossible had been done. For centuries, the Zorath had called themselves unstoppable. But now, they were running. Their fleets scattered, their soldiers broke, and their empire shook with fear. The man stood among his people as the smoke cleared. Around him were ruins still burning, but also banners of humanity rising again. He looked to the sky, where alien ships fled in panic, and he spoke words that echoed across the battlefield. They thought we were gone. They thought they had won. But humanity does not end. Humanity rises. The survivors raised their voices in reply. Their roar shook the earth louder than the weapons of war. The Zorath were gone from their home, but humanity was not satisfied with only Earth. The rage of centuries could not be contained on one planet. The humans looked to the stars. Their enemies were still out there, their empire still standing, and their revenge was only beginning. Across the galaxy, whispers spread. Civilizations enslaved by the Zorath heard the news. Hope, long buried, returned to their hearts. The humans were alive. The humans had defeated the conquerors who had ruled for thousands of years. And now the humans were coming. The Zorath Council, scattered and broken, hid in distant worlds. They knew the truth no one dared to say aloud. Their empire had been built on fear, but that fear now belonged to them. For the first time in their history, they were the hunted. And on Earth, where silence had once ruled, humanity prepared their fleets. They rebuilt their armies, trained their children, and swore an oath. Never again would they fall. Never again would they sleep while others ruled the stars. The cryo chambers were empty now, but the people they had protected filled the world with fire and life. The story of humanity was not over. It had only just begun. The stars waited. And the galaxy would soon remember the truth. No one could stop the Zorath until humanity rose from cryo sleep.